He thought the earthquake just cracked his land, until his dog started digging and uncovered something that should never have existed beneath his home. Ethan Cole lived a quiet life in the mountains of Wyoming, far from people, far from noise, until one restless night changed everything. His dog Bruno refused to sleep, growling into the darkness like he sensed something deeper. By morning, the earth had split open, revealing a hidden tunnel no one was supposed to find. What lay beneath wasn't abandoned. It was alive. And it had been there for years. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me, where are you watching from? The wind moved differently that night. Ethan Cole noticed it the moment he stepped out onto the porch, boots creaking softly against the worn wood. Wyoming nights were usually quiet, wide, an open silence stretching across miles of dark hills and dry pasture. But this felt off. The air hung heavier, like something unseen had settled over the land. Behind him, the screen door gave a faint rattle. Bruno. The German shepherd stood just inside the doorway, rigid, ears pinned forward, eyes locked on the darkness beyond the fence line. He wasn't barking. That was what made it worse. Bruno never stayed silent when something was wrong. Ethan leaned against the railing, rubbing the back of his neck, trying to shake the feeling crawling under his skin. "What is it, boy?" he muttered. The dog didn't move. Out past the barn, the fields rolled into shadow, broken only by the pale outline of old fence posts and the distant silhouette of pine trees clinging to the hillside. Nothing stirred. No coyotes, no rustling cattle. Just that stillness, too complete, too perfect. Bruno let out a low growl. It vibrated deep in his chest, barely audible, but Ethan felt it more than heard it. A warning. Not fear. Not yet. Something closer to tension, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Ethan exhaled slowly and stepped down into the dirt, boots crunching against gravel. "Probably just a fox," he said, though the words sounded hollow even to him. He'd heard that tone before. Not here. No. Overseas. Years ago, in places he tried not to think about. Bruno moved past him, slow and deliberate, nose low to the ground as he crossed the yard. The dog didn't hesitate, didn't second guess. He moved with purpose, straight toward the far edge of the field. Ethan followed. The night stretched wide around them, the stars sharp and cold overhead, and each step carried a faint echo, like the land itself was listening. He told himself he was overthinking it, that this was just another restless night, another ghost from a past he hadn't fully left behind. But then Bruno stopped. Right at the edge of the field, the dog stiffened, muscles locking under his coat, and then, without warning, he started digging, hard. Dirt flew behind him in quick, violent bursts. His paws struck the ground again and again, faster than Ethan had ever seen, like he was trying to reach something buried deep beneath the surface. "Hey! Hey!" Ethan stepped forward. "Easy!" Bruno didn't listen. The growl returned, louder now, edged with something sharper. Not just warning, urgency. Ethan grabbed the flashlight from his belt and flicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, unilluminating the churned soil beneath Bruno's paws. Fresh dirt. Damp. Looser than it should have been. That didn't make sense. This part of the field was dry, hard-packed. It shouldn't break apart like that. "Bruno," he said again, firmer this time. The dog finally paused, but only for a second. Then he snapped his head up and stared straight ahead. Not at Ethan. Past him. Into the open field. Ethan turned slowly. The beam of the flashlight swept across the ground, catching nothing but grass and shadow. The wind had died completely now. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating, and then A faint sound. So soft he almost missed it. A low, distant shift. Not above. Below. Ethan froze. His heartbeat kicked once, hard against his ribs. Bruno barked, sharp, sudden, explosive. It shattered the silence. As Ethan stepped back instinctively, his boots sliding slightly in the loose dirt. The flashlight trembled in his hand as he aimed it down at the ground Bruno had been digging. The soil trembled, just for a moment, then stilled again. Ethan swallowed. "No," he whispered under his breath, though he didn't know what he was denying. Bruno moved closer to him now, pressing against his leg, but his eyes never left that patch of earth. The dog's body was tense, ready to move, ready to react, ready to protect. Ethan forced himself to breathe, slow and steady, like he'd been taught. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Ground yourself. Stay present. But the feeling wouldn't go away. That sense that something wasn't right. He lowered the flashlight again, scanning the area more carefully this time. The dirt Bruno had torn through looked darker beneath the surface. Almost damp. Almost disturbed. Like it hadn't been touched in years. Until now. The beam flickered slightly as his hand tightened, and for just a split second, he thought he saw something beneath the soil. Not rock, not root. Something smooth. Something curved. Ethan blinked. The image was gone. "Just your imagination," he muttered, though his voice had lost its conviction. Bruno growled again. Lower this time. Closer. Ethan looked down at him. The dog wasn't staring at the ground anymore. He was staring at Ethan, as if trying to tell him something, as if waiting. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He'd seen that look before. Back when Bruno had first come to him, fresh out of training. He was sharp and alert and faster than any instinct Ethan had left. The dog had saved his life once, pulled him back from something he hadn't even seen coming. And now, that same look was back. The same warning. Ethan exhaled slowly, eyes drifting back to the disturbed patch of earth. The night stretched on around them, silent, waiting, and somewhere deep beneath his boots, something shifted again. So faint, so subtle, that if Bruno hadn't been there, Ethan would have never known. He reached down, resting a hand against the dog's neck, feeling the steady warmth beneath his fingers. "All right," he murmured. "We'll check it in the morning." Bruno didn't move, didn't relax. He just stood there beside Ethan, staring into the ground, as if he knew morning would be too late. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay on the narrow bed in his small farmhouse, staring at the ceiling where faint cracks traced through old paint like dried riverbeds. The wind had gone completely still outside. Even the usual creaks of the house had faded. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your ears until you started hearing things that weren't there, or things you wished weren't. Bruno lay on the floor beside the bed, but not curled up like usual. He was awake. Ethan could hear the slow, controlled rhythm of his breathing. Not relaxed. Alert. Waiting. Ethan turned his head slightly, glancing down. In the dim light spilling through the window, Bruno's eyes reflected faintly, two steady points in the dark, watching the door, watching the world beyond it. "You're not letting this go, huh?" Ethan murmured. The dog didn't move. Ethan closed his eyes. For a moment he almost drifted. And then, a sound. Low. Distant. A vibration more than a noise. Ethan's eyes snapped open. His body reacted before his mind could catch up. The bed trembled. Just slightly. But enough. His chest tightened instantly, breath catching as something deep and buried surged back to the surface. Not here, not now, but it didn't matter. His body didn't care where he was. It only knew the feeling. The ground began to shake, harder. The glass on the nightstand rattled violently, then tipped, shattering against the wooden floor. The walls groaned as the house shifted, old beams straining under pressure they weren't meant to hold. Ethan shot upright, heart slamming against his ribs. For a split second, he wasn't in Wyoming. He was somewhere else. Dust, smoke, the sound of distant blasts rolling across open land. The air thick with heat and tension. The ground moving beneath him not as earth, but as something alive, something dangerous. "Move!" someone had shouted. But there was no one here, only the echo. "Ethan!" The bark snapped him back. Bruno was on his feet now, barking sharply, urgently, circling once before stopping at the door. His eyes locked on Ethan, intense, focused, present. Ethan sucked in a breath. "Yeah," he muttered, forcing himself up. "I'm here. I'm here." The shaking intensified. He grabbed his jacket without thinking, pulling it on as he moved toward the door. The floor shifted beneath his boots, uneven, unstable. Another deep rumble rolled through the ground, louder this time, closer. Not thunder, not wind, something deeper. Ethan yanked the door open. That cold air hit his face as he stepped outside. The sky was still dark, but the horizon had begun to pale faintly with early morning light. The land stretched out in front of him, but it didn't feel the same. The earth moved, not violently, but enough. Enough to remind him that nothing beneath his feet was as solid as it should be. Bruno bolted forward, straight toward the field. "Bruno!" Ethan called, but the dog didn't slow. Ethan followed, boots slipping slightly as the ground shifted beneath him. Each step felt uncertain, like walking across something hollow. The rumbling peaked, then stopped. Just like that. Silence. Heavy. Sudden. Ethan froze mid-step, breathing hard, ears ringing. The world held its breath. And then, a sound. A crack. Sharp, loud. Right ahead. Ethan's head snapped up. The ground split. It happened fast. Too fast. A jagged line tore through the soil, starting where Bruno had been digging the night before. It ripped forward like a zipper pulled open, dirt collapsing inward as the earth gave way beneath itself. "Bruno!" The dog skidded to a stop at the edge just as the ground dropped. A section of the field caved in with a dull, heavy collapse, sending a cloud of dust into the cold morning air. Loose soil tumbled downward, disappearing into darkness below. Ethan staggered back, boots digging into the dirt to keep his balance. His heart pounded. Not from memory this time, from what he was seeing. The shaking was gone, but the damage remained. Where there had once been solid ground, there was now a hole. Wide, deep, wrong. Bruno stood at the edge, barking again, but this time it wasn't frantic, and it was focused, controlled, like he was trying to call attention to something specific. Ethan approached slowly. Every instinct told him to stop, but he didn't. He stepped closer, careful, eyes fixed on the ground ahead. The air around the opening felt different, cooler, damp, carrying a faint metallic scent that didn't belong in open farmland. Bruno moved slightly to the side, giving Ethan space. Still watching, still waiting. Ethan reached the edge and looked down. At first, nothing. Just darkness. The hole stretched deeper than he expected. The sides jagged and uneven, layers of soil exposed like a cross-section of time itself. He raised his flashlight with a steady hand and clicked it on. The beam cut through the dark. Down. Further. And then it caught something. Ethan's breath stopped. Not rock, not root. Well, something smooth, curved, metal. Partially buried in the collapsed dirt, just beneath the surface, was a structure, rounded, almost too perfect in shape. The light slid across it, revealing a dull sheen beneath layers of soil. Ethan leaned forward slightly, narrowing his eyes. That wasn't possible. There were no pipelines here, no construction, nothing that should look like that. Behind him, Bruno let out a low growl. Ethan didn't look away. The beam trembled just slightly in his hand as he adjusted the angle. More of it came into view. Not just metal. A surface. A wall. Curving inward. Like the edge of something much larger hidden beneath the earth. Ethan felt his pulse in his throat. "No," he whispered. But the evidence was right there. Buried. Waiting. He took a step back, breath unsteady now. Yet the ground beneath his land wasn't empty. And whatever was down there hadn't been meant to be found. Bruno barked once, sharp and loud. Ethan looked at him. The dog wasn't looking at the hole anymore. He was looking at Ethan again. That same look. The same one from the night before. The same one from years ago. Warning. Not curiosity. Not confusion. Danger. Ethan swallowed hard, eyes drifting back to the dark opening in the earth. The sun began to rise slowly over the horizon, pale light spilling across the broken field. But it didn't bring warmth. It only revealed more. The edges of the hole. The disturbed soil. And beneath it, something that didn't belong. Ethan took another slow step back. His voice was barely above a whisper. "What the hell is under my land?" The wind picked up again, soft, uncertain, and then somewhere deep below, far beneath where the light could reach, something shifted, waiting. Ethan didn't realize he'd stopped breathing until his chest started to ache. The flashlight beam trembled in his hand, cutting through the darkness below, catching only fragments, curved metal, packed soil, shadows that seemed to swallow the light whole. He stepped back again, boots scraping against loose dirt. "This isn't real," he muttered. But it was. The morning light continued to rise behind him, pale and cold, stretching across the broken field. It revealed more of the damage now, the jagged edges of the collapse, the torn roots hanging from the sides like exposed veins, and at the center of it all, that hole, too wide, too deep, too clean. Bruno moved closer to the edge again, lowering his head cautiously. Yet his ears were pinned forward, body tense, every muscle alert. He didn't bark this time. He just stared. Ethan forced himself to move again, stepping to the side to get a better angle. He crouched slowly, keeping his weight balanced, careful not to get too close. The ground here felt unstable, loose, wrong. He aimed the flashlight again, adjusting the beam. There it was. Clearer now. Not just a curve, a structure. The metal surface wasn't rusted the way it should have been. It wasn't jagged or broken like debris. It was smooth, deliberate, engineered. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Pipe?" he whispered. No, too wide, too uniform. And it wasn't running straight. It curved downward into the earth, like part of something larger, something hidden. Bruno growled softly. Ethan glanced at him. "Oh, what do you hear?" he asked under his breath. The dog didn't answer, of course, but his gaze shifted slightly, focusing deeper into the hole, listening. Ethan followed that line of sight, and then he heard it. Faint. So faint he almost dismissed it. A low hum. Not wind, not movement of soil, something mechanical. Ethan froze. The sound pulsed once, then again, steady, rhythmic, like something was still running down there. His stomach tightened. That's not possible. No one had worked this land in decades except him. There were no records of pipelines, no drilling permits, nothing. He would have known, wouldn't he? The hum continued, barely audible, but real. Bruno took a sudden step back, letting out a sharp bark. His body shifted between Ethan and the hole, protective, blocking him instinctively. Easy, Ethan said, though his voice was tight now. He stood slowly, taking another step away from the edge. The air around the hole carried that same faint scent now, metallic mixed with something sharper, something chemical. Ethan turned his head slightly, scanning the field. Everything else looked the same. The barn stood where it always had, weathered wood catching the early light. The fence line stretched out in familiar patterns. The hills beyond rolled quietly under the morning sky. Normal. Too normal. Like nothing had changed. Except it had. Right here. Right under his feet. Ethan ran a hand over his face, trying to steady himself. Think. That's what he'd been trained to do, assess, observe, don't panic. But his thoughts kept circling back to the same point. Something was down there. And it wasn't dead. Bruno let out another low growl, softer this time, but no less tense. Ethan looked at him again. You don't like it, he said quietly. The dog's eyes flicked back to the hole, then back to Ethan. No. He didn't like it. Ethan exhaled slowly. Yeah, he murmured. Me neither. He stepped back another few feet, putting more distance between himself and the edge. The ground still felt unstable, like it could give way again without warning. He didn't trust it. Didn't trust anything about this. The hum continued. Faint. Relentless. Ethan turned and walked back toward the house, Bruno staying close at his side now, glancing back over his shoulder every few steps. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them relaxed. By the time they reached the porch, the sun had fully broken over the horizon. Light spilled across the land, once warming the surface, but it didn't reach whatever lay beneath. Ethan paused at the door. His hand hovered over the handle. He looked back one more time. The hole sat in the middle of his field like a wound. Open. Unhealed. Watching. Ethan swallowed. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't go down there alone. Not this time. He stepped inside and grabbed his phone from the kitchen table. The screen lit up, casting a pale glow across his face as he scrolled through his contacts. There weren't many names. He didn't keep people close. Hadn't for years. But one name stood out. Marcus Reed. Ethan hesitated for a second, then pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then, Cole? Marcus's voice came through, rough with sleep but instantly alert. You all right? Ethan stared out the window toward the field, toward the hole. Oh, no, he said quietly. A pause. What happened? Ethan took a breath. Something opened up on my land, he said, and I don't think it's supposed to be there. Silence. Then Marcus spoke again, slower this time. What kind of something? Ethan's eyes drifted back to the distant shape of the collapse. His voice dropped. Something that sounds like it's still running. Another pause. Longer. Then, I'll be there in an hour. The line went dead. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. Behind him, Bruno lay down near the door, but he didn't rest. His eyes stayed fixed on the field, waiting. Ethan leaned against the counter, staring at nothing. An hour. That was all. Then they'd go back back to the hole, back to whatever was waiting beneath it. And for the first time since he'd come home, Ethan felt it clearly. Not memory, not ghosts. Something real, something present, and something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. The rumble of an engine broke the stillness just before noon. Ethan stepped out onto the porch as a dust trail curled up along the narrow dirt road leading to his property. A familiar truck pushed through the haze, old, heavy, built to last. It rolled to a stop beside the barn with a low growl before the engine cut out. For a moment, neither man moved. Then the driver's door opened. Marcus Reed stepped out, boots hitting the ground with quiet certainty. He looked older than Ethan remembered, more lines around the eyes, more gray in his beard. But there was something unchanged in the way he stood. Solid, grounded, like he carried his balance with him wherever he went. His gaze moved past Ethan, straight to the field. "Oh, you weren't kidding," Marcus said. Ethan didn't answer. He just nodded once and started walking. Marcus grabbed a canvas bag from the back seat, flashlights, rope, tools, then followed without another word. Bruno was already waiting at the edge of the field, standing exactly where he had been that morning, still, watching. Marcus slowed when he saw the dog. "That him?" he asked quietly. Ethan glanced down at Bruno. "Yeah." Marcus studied the German Shepherd for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Good eyes." Bruno didn't acknowledge him. His attention stayed fixed on the hole. Ethan reached the edge first. The collapse looked worse in full daylight. The jagged tear in the earth stretched wider than it had seemed before. Loose soil still shifted occasionally, small pieces crumbling down into the darkness below. And the edges were unstable, fragile. One wrong step, and more of it could give way. Marcus let out a low whistle. "That's not natural." "No," Ethan said. "It's not." Marcus set his bag down and crouched near the edge, careful with his footing. He pulled out a flashlight and aimed it downward. The beam disappeared into the depths, then caught. Metal. Marcus leaned in slightly, narrowing his eyes. "Well, I'll be damned." Ethan watched him. "You hear it?" he asked. Marcus went still. For a few seconds there was nothing. Then, a faint hum. Marcus's expression changed. Subtle, but enough. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I hear it." The two men stood there in silence, the sound barely reaching them, but impossible to ignore once noticed. Marcus straightened slowly. "That's not old," he said. Whatever's down there. It's active." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I figured." Marcus glanced at him. "You go down yet?" Ethan shook his head. "No." Marcus nodded once as if that was the right answer. "Good." He looked back at the hole, then down at the gear in his bag. "We're gonna have to." Bruno barked once, sharp, immediate. Both men looked at him. The dog stepped forward, then back again, pacing the edge in a tight arc. His body was tense, tail low, ears forward. He didn't like this. Not at all. Ethan crouched slightly, resting a hand on Bruno's neck. "I know," he said quietly. "I know." The dog stilled under his touch, but the tension didn't leave him. Marcus watched the exchange for a second, then spoke. "He's picking something up," he said. "Something we're not." Ethan didn't argue. He stood and took a breath, letting it out slowly. "We go in," he said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah." They worked quickly. Marcus secured the rope to the axle of his truck, testing the tension twice before trusting it. The line stretched down into the hole, disappearing into shadow. Ethan tightened his gloves. Bruno moved closer, pressing against his leg again. Ethan looked down at him. You stay, he said. The dog didn't move. Ethan's voice softened. Stay. For a moment, Bruno held his gaze. Then, reluctantly, he stepped back. But he didn't go far. Marcus gave Ethan a look. You sure about that? Ethan nodded. He'll be fine up here. But something in his voice lacked certainty. Marcus didn't push it. All right, he said. You go first. I'll follow. Ethan took hold of the rope. For a second, his hands hesitated, while the rough texture against his palms felt familiar. Too familiar. Rappelling down unstable ground. Unknown territory. No clear exit. His chest tightened slightly. He forced a breath in, then another. You're not there anymore, he muttered under his breath. Then he stepped over the edge. The descent was slow, controlled. The walls of the hole were warm to the touch, dirt packed tight in some places, loose in others. Small stones shifted beneath his boots as he lowered himself, the rope creaking softly above. The air changed the deeper he went, heavier, thicker. That metallic scent grew stronger, mixed now with something sharper, chemical almost. Ethan reached the bottom. His boots hit solid ground with a dull thud. He let go of the rope and turned slowly, raising his flashlight. The beam swept across the space. And then he saw it. Not just a piece, not just a surface, a tunnel, wide, smooth, deliberate. The walls curved outward, forming a passage that stretched into darkness on both sides. The surface wasn't raw earth. It was shaped, engineered. The texture almost too clean, too uniform to belong underground. Ethan took a slow step forward. His breath caught. This isn't just something buried, he said quietly. Marcus's boots hit the ground behind him. What is it? Ethan didn't answer right away. He just kept looking. The beam moved across the walls again, catching faint lines etched into the surface, patterns that didn't make sense at first glance. Not natural, not random. Marcus stepped up beside him. Then he saw it too. Jesus! The hum was louder down here, still faint, but constant, alive. But Marcus ran a hand along the wall, then pulled it back quickly. Warm, he said. Ethan nodded. Yeah. They stood in silence for a moment, taking it in, understanding it. This wasn't here before, Ethan said. Marcus shook his head slowly. No, he replied. It was. Ethan turned to him. Marcus met his gaze. You just didn't know about it. The words settled heavy in the air. Ethan looked back at the tunnel, at the darkness stretching ahead, at the structure hidden beneath his land, his home, his family's ground. Something had been here all along, working, waiting, taking. The hum pulsed again, deeper this time, and somewhere far ahead, beyond where the light could reach. Something echoed back. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. But it was enough. Ethan froze where he stood, at every muscle locking tight as his grip on the flashlight hardened. Did you hear that? Marcus whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He just nodded. The sound had come from deep within the tunnel, a faint metallic shift, like something adjusting or reacting. The hum beneath their feet pulsed again, slightly stronger this time. Alive. Ethan swallowed slowly and took a step forward. Careful, Marcus warned, moving with him. The beam of light stretched down the curved passage, revealing more of the structure. The walls were seamless, almost too perfect, with thin lines running along them like veins, some dark, some faintly glistening, pipes, embedded, hidden just beneath the surface. Ethan reached out and hovered his hand near one of them. Heat. Not just warmth, active heat. "This thing's running hot," he said. Marcus crouched, examining the ground. "And steady," he added. "That hum, it's consistent. Whatever this is, it's been operating for a long time." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Under my land." Marcus didn't respond. They moved deeper. Each step echoed softly, swallowed by the curved walls. The air grew thicker, heavier, pressing against Ethan's chest with each breath. Then, a sharp bark echoed from above. Both men froze. "Bruno," Ethan said immediately. Another bark, closer, louder. Then the sound of claws scraping against dirt. "He's coming down," Marcus said. Ethan turned toward the rope, heart tightening. "No, he shouldn't." Before he could finish, a shadow dropped from above. Bruno landed hard on the ground, sliding slightly before catching himself. His paws scraped against the smooth surface as he regained balance. "Oh, damn it," Ethan muttered, stepping toward him. "I told you to stay." But Bruno wasn't listening. He rushed forward, placing himself between Ethan and the tunnel ahead, body rigid, low growl rumbling deep in his chest. Marcus watched carefully. "He didn't want you down here alone," he said. Ethan exhaled slowly, placing a hand on Bruno's back. The dog's fur was tense beneath his palm, muscles coiled like a spring. "It's okay," Ethan murmured. "I'm here." Bruno didn't relax. His eyes stayed fixed on the darkness ahead. Listening. Ethan followed his gaze. Then, a faint hiss. Subtle. Barely there. Marcus turned his head sharply. "Gas?" Ethan sniffed the air. That sharp scent from before. Stronger now. "Yeah," he said. "Something's leaking." Bruno stepped sideways, nudging Ethan's leg firmly. Not random. Guiding. As Ethan paused. "You smell it?" he asked softly. The dog huffed once, then moved a few steps to the left side of the tunnel, away from the center. Ethan followed. Marcus caught on immediately and shifted with them. As they moved, the smell faded slightly. "Smart dog," Marcus said under his breath. Bruno didn't react. He was focused. They continued forward, now hugging the side Bruno had chosen. The tunnel curved gently downward, the hum growing louder, deeper, almost like a heartbeat. Then, a crack. Sharp, sudden. The ground beneath Ethan's right foot gave slightly. He jerked back instinctively just as a section of the floor ahead collapsed inward, revealing a narrow gap beneath. Loose debris tumbled down into darkness. Marcus grabbed Ethan's shoulder, pulling him back. "Watch it!" Ethan steadied himself, breathing hard. That wasn't there a second ago." Bruno barked sharply again, stepping in front of Ethan, blocking him from moving forward. Then Ethan saw it. Hairline fractures running across the floor. Weak points. The structure wasn't as stable as it looked. "It's shifting," Marcus said. "Maybe from the quake. Maybe from whatever's running through it." Ethan nodded slowly. His pulse hadn't slowed yet. Bruno pressed closer, brushing against his leg. Ethan looked down at him. "You saw that before I did," he said quietly. The dog blinked once, ears still forward. Alert. Always alert. They adjusted their path, stepping carefully around the damaged section, every movement now deliberate, measured. Then, another sound. Not from ahead this time. From above. A deep, distant rumble. Ethan's eyes widened. Not again." The walls vibrated slightly. Dust fell in thin streams from the ceiling. Marcus looked up. "Aftershock." The word barely left his mouth before the ground trembled. Not violent, but enough. The tunnel groaned, a low, strained sound as the structure shifted under pressure. "Move!" Marcus shouted. They started back the way they came, quick but controlled. Then, A section of the wall to their right cracked open with a sharp snap. Something burst outward. A thin pipe ruptured, spraying a dark liquid across the floor. The smell hit instantly, strong, choking, oil, or something close to it. "Go!" Marcus barked. Ethan grabbed Bruno's collar instinctively, pulling him along as they moved. But Bruno resisted, just for a second. He turned his head sharply toward the broken pipe, then lunged forward. "Bruno!" Too late. The dog darted ahead, stopping just short of another weak section of ground. He barked, loud, urgent. Ethan followed his line of sight, and saw it. The floor ahead, hollow, barely holding. If they had kept running, they would have fallen straight through. Marcus exhaled sharply. "That dog just saved us." Ethan didn't respond. He dropped to one knee beside Bruno, gripping the dog's shoulders. "You're gonna get yourself killed," he said, voice tight. Bruno licked his hand once, quick, then turned back toward the path, focused again. The rumble above faded slowly. The tunnel settled, but the damage remained. The broken pipe continued to leak, the liquid pooling along the floor, creeping toward them. "We need to get out," Marcus said. "Now!" Ethan nodded. They retraced their steps carefully, Bruno leading now, choosing each safe patch of ground before stepping forward. Every few seconds, he glanced back, making sure Ethan followed, making sure he was still there. They reached the rope. Marcus climbed first, fast but steady. Ethan waited just long enough to secure Bruno. "Up," he said. The dog hesitated, just for a second, then jumped, paws finding purchase against the wall as Ethan guided him upward. By the time Ethan followed, his arms burned, his lungs tight from the air below. He pulled himself over the edge and collapsed onto the grass, breathing hard. Bruno landed beside him, immediately pressing close, alive. Marcus stood a few feet away, hands on his hips, staring back down into the hole. "That's no abandoned tunnel," he said. Ethan pushed himself up slowly, eyes fixed on the same dark opening. But the hum was still there, faint now, but steady, unchanged, like nothing had happened. Ethan wiped the sweat from his face. "That thing's not just running," he said quietly. Marcus glanced at him. Ethan's voice dropped. "It's breathing." The wind moved quietly across the Wyoming hills, brushing through dry grass like nothing had changed. But everything had. Marcus didn't answer right away. He just kept staring into the hole, jaw tight, eyes narrowed like he was trying to calculate something too big to say out loud. Finally, he spoke. "That kind of infrastructure doesn't just show up," he said. "Not without records, permits, oversight." Ethan let out a dry breath. "Then where are they?" Marcus didn't have an answer. Bruno stood beside Ethan, still watching the hole. His ears twitched at every faint sound, or every shift in the air. He hadn't relaxed since they came back up, not even for a second. That alone told Ethan everything he needed to know. They walked back toward the house in silence. The sun was high now, casting long, sharp shadows across the land. Everything looked the same as it always had. Fence lines, barn, dirt road. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he had been living on top of something. Hidden. Something that didn't belong. Inside the house, Marcus spread out a rough map of the property across the kitchen table. "You've got full ownership?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "Inherited it from my father." Marcus traced a finger along the boundary lines. "Surface rights, sure," he said. "But what about mineral rights?" Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus looked up. "In a lot of these places," he explained, the land and what's under it are two different things. You might own the ground you walk on, but not what's beneath it." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. That doesn't make sense, he said. It's my land. Marcus didn't argue. He just leaned back slightly. I've seen it before, he said. Companies buy underground rights decades ago, then sit on them. Or worse, they don't report everything they're doing. Ethan shook his head. No, he said. No one's been here. I would have known. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure anymore. Bruno let out a low huff from the floor, drawing Ethan's attention. The dog had moved to the window, staring out toward the field again. Watching. Always watching. Marcus folded the map. You need records, he said. Legal ones. Ownership, permits, drilling history. Of anything tied to this land. Ethan nodded slowly. There's a town office, he said. County records. Marcus stood. Then we start there. The town sat about 30 minutes away. Small. Quiet. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Or used to. Ethan hadn't been back in a while. Didn't have much reason to. As his truck rolled down the main street, he caught familiar sights. Old storefronts, faded signs, the same gas station on the corner. Nothing had changed. Except him. Bruno sat in the passenger seat, alert but calm, eyes scanning the surroundings like he always did. Marcus followed behind in his own truck. They parked outside the county records building, a low brick structure that looked older than the town itself. Inside, the air smelled like paper and dust. A woman behind the front desk looked up as they entered. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, professional posture. Can I help you? She asked. Ethan stepped forward. Yeah, he said. I need land records. Property ownership, mineral rights, anything tied to my address. She studied him for a moment. What's your name? Ethan Cole. Something flickered across her face. Recognition. Then something else. Something harder to read. Cole, she repeated. Ethan noticed. You know the name? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded once. Follow me. She led them deeper into the building, past rows of filing cabinets and shelves stacked with old documents. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. She stopped at a desk and pulled out a thick file. Set it down. Your property, she said. Ethan stepped closer. Notice the folder was heavier than he expected. Too thick. He opened it. Page after page of records. Ownership transfers, surveys, legal documents. Marcus leaned in beside him. Look for mineral rights, he said. Ethan flipped through. Then he stopped. There it was. A separate document. Stamped. Official. Transferred decades ago. His eyes scanned the text, then froze. Midland Bore Logistics, he read aloud. Marcus went still. Ethan looked up. That mean anything to you? Marcus's expression darkened. Yeah, he said quietly. It does. Ethan felt his pulse pick up. What? Marcus hesitated, then spoke. They were a drilling contractor, he said. Military adjacent. Took on government jobs no one else would touch. Ethan's stomach dropped. What kind of jobs? Marcus met his eyes. Oh, the kind that don't get talked about. Silence filled the space between them. Ethan looked back down at the document. The date. 30 years ago, before his father passed, before Ethan left for the military, before everything. They bought the rights, and no one told us? Ethan said, voice tightening. The woman behind the desk spoke up quietly. They didn't have to. Ethan turned to her. What do you mean? She crossed her arms. As long as surface operations weren't disrupted, she explained, they could operate below without direct notification, especially back then. Ethan stared at her. They've been under my land this whole time? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Ethan flipped through more pages, more documents, more evidence. Then, a final entry. Recent. Too recent. His breath caught. Operations status? Active, he read. Marcus leaned closer. What? Ethan's voice dropped. They never shut it down. The room felt colder. He looked up slowly. They're still running. Bruno let out a low growl from behind him. Ethan turned. The dog stood near the doorway, body tense again, eyes locked on something Ethan couldn't see. Marcus followed his gaze. What is it? He asked. Bruno didn't move, didn't blink. Just watched. Ethan felt that same cold sensation crawl up his spine. They weren't alone. Not anymore. And whatever had been buried beneath his land was never meant to stay hidden forever. The silence inside the records room stretched too long. Ethan felt it before he understood it. A shift. Subtle. But real. Bruno's growl deepened, low and controlled, vibrating through his chest. Yet the dog's body stiffened, eyes locked toward the hallway behind them. Marcus turned slowly. What is it? He whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He was already moving. He stepped past the desk, following Bruno's line of sight toward the narrow corridor leading back to the front of the building. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly overhead, casting a dull, uneven glow across the walls. Nothing moved. No one stood there. But something felt wrong. The woman behind the desk spoke again, quieter now. You should go, she said. Ethan turned back. What? Her expression had changed. The calm professionalism was gone. In its place was something else. Concern. Take your dog, she added, and leave. Marcus frowned. Why? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she glanced toward the front entrance. They don't like questions, she said. Ethan's stomach tightened. Who? But she didn't respond. She simply looked at Bruno again, then back at Ethan. Go. That was enough. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed the file, tucking the key documents under his arm, and nodded once to Marcus. Let's move. They walked out quickly, but not fast enough to draw attention. Controlled, calm, like nothing was wrong. But everything was. The moment they stepped outside, the air hit different, brighter, open, but not safe. Ethan scanned the street. That's when he saw it. A black SUV parked across the road, engine running, windows tinted. Still. Marcus saw it too. Friend of yours? He muttered. Ethan didn't answer. Bruno let out a sharp bark. The SUV's engine revved slightly, then it pulled away. Slow, deliberate, almost like it had been waiting, watching. Ethan exhaled slowly, but the tension didn't leave his body. They know, Marcus said. Ethan nodded. Yeah. They didn't waste time. Within minutes, they were back on the road, heading toward the ranch. The sky had started to shift, clouds rolling in over the mountains, casting long shadows across the land. Bruno sat upright in the passenger seat again. Alert. Every few seconds, his ears twitched, his eyes shifting to the side mirror, watching behind them. Ethan noticed. You see something? He asked quietly. Bruno didn't respond, but he didn't relax either. By the time they reached the property, the light had dimmed, the wind had picked up. The hole in the field looked darker now, deeper, waiting. Marcus stepped out of his truck and walked straight toward it. Ethan followed. But Bruno was already ahead of them, standing at the edge. Same position, same tension. But something had changed. The hum. It was louder now, not by much, but enough. Ethan felt it in his chest before he even registered it with his ears. A steady vibration, like the ground itself was alive. Marcus crouched near the edge again. "That's new," he said. Ethan nodded. "They're doing something." Marcus looked up. "Or they know we're here." The words hung heavy. Bruno suddenly barked, sharp, urgent. Then he moved, fast. Before Ethan could stop him, Bruno jumped down into the hole again. "Bruno!" Ethan shouted. Too late. Marcus grabbed the rope immediately. "We're going after him." Ethan didn't hesitate. They moved faster this time. Less hesitation, more urgency. The descent felt shorter, harsher, but like the ground itself was pulling them down. Ethan hit the bottom hard, barely catching his balance before turning. "Bruno!" A bark echoed from deeper inside. Alive. Moving. "Go," Marcus said. They followed the sound. Deeper into the tunnel, faster than before. The air was hotter now, thicker. The hum louder, no longer faint but constant, pressing against their ears. Ethan's heartbeat matched it. Step, step, step. Then, light. Faint at first. A soft glow ahead. Ethan slowed. Marcus grabbed his arm. "Wait." They crouched slightly, moving forward with more caution now. The tunnel opened, just enough, and what they saw stopped them cold. A larger chamber, wider, filled with structure, metal frameworks, pipes, control panels, and lights. Working lights. Machines lined the walls, some silent, and others vibrating softly as they ran. Thick pipes fed into the ground and disappeared again, like veins pumping something deep beneath the surface. Ethan's breath caught. This is active," Marcus whispered. "It's bigger than I thought." Then, movement. Across the chamber, a figure, dressed in dark work gear, walking between machines. Ethan's eyes widened. "They're still here." Marcus pulled him back slightly. "Stay low." Bruno stood just ahead, partially hidden behind a support beam. He didn't bark this time. He didn't move. He watched. Silent. Waiting. Ethan felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a discovery anymore. This was a system, organized, protected, hidden on purpose, and they had just walked straight into it. The man across the chamber paused, turned slightly, as if he heard something. Ethan froze. Bruno didn't move. Neither did Marcus. For a moment. Everything stopped. Then the man turned back, kept walking. Ethan let out a slow breath, but his hands were shaking now. Not from fear, from something else. Anger. "They've been doing this under us," he whispered. Marcus nodded. For a long time. Bruno stepped back slowly, pressing against Ethan's leg. A silent signal. Time to leave. Ethan understood. He took one last look at the chamber, at the machines, at the people, then turned. They moved quietly back into the tunnel. Each step away felt heavier than the last, because now they knew the truth. And the truth wasn't buried in the past. It was happening. Right now. Ethan didn't speak until they were halfway back through the tunnel, and his breath came heavier now, not from the walk, but from what he had seen. "They're operating," he said, voice low but tight. "Under farms, under homes, no one knows." Marcus kept his eyes forward. "Someone knows," he replied. "They just don't want it known." Bruno moved ahead of them again, guiding, choosing each step carefully. The dog's movements were sharper now, more urgent. He paused more often, listening, scanning, reacting before anything visible changed. Ethan trusted that instinct more than his own. The hum grew louder again as they moved, then suddenly dipped, flickered. Marcus slowed. "That's not good." Ethan felt it too. The vibration in the ground wasn't steady anymore. It pulsed unevenly. Then, a sharp metallic crack echoed from deeper behind them. Both men turned instinctively. "What was that?" Ethan asked. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer came a second later. A deep, violent rumble surged through the tunnel. "Move!" Marcus shouted. The ground shook harder this time. Not like the earlier aftershock. Stronger. Closer. The walls groaned as pressure built somewhere behind them. Bruno barked, loud, urgent, and bolted forward. Ethan followed immediately. Adrenaline hit fast. Everything sharpened. Every sound. Every movement. "Go! Go!" Marcus yelled behind him. Another crack. Then a blast. Not fire. Not visible flame. But pressure. A violent force slammed through the tunnel behind them, sending a wave of air and debris forward. Dust exploded into the air, reducing visibility to nothing in seconds. Ethan stumbled but kept moving. "Bruno!" he called out. A bark answered. Ahead, still ahead. But the tunnel shifted again. Chunks of debris fell from above, hitting the ground with heavy thuds. The smooth walls fractured in places, exposing pipes beneath, some bent, some leaking. The air turned thick, choking. Ethan coughed, pulling his sleeve over his mouth. "Keep moving!" Marcus shouted. The rope. They needed the rope. Ethan pushed forward, following the sound of Bruno's paws ahead of him. Then, Bruno stopped, suddenly, sharp. Ethan nearly ran into him. "What?" The dog barked again, stepping sideways, blocking Ethan's path. Ethan looked down. The ground ahead. Gone. Collapsed inward. A wide section of the tunnel floor had given way completely, leaving a jagged gap that dropped into darkness. If they had taken 3 more steps, they would have fallen. Marcus reached them seconds later, skidding to a stop. "Oh, damn it!" The rumble behind them grew louder, closer. The tunnel was failing. "We don't have time," Marcus said. "We jump it." Ethan looked at the gap. Too wide for a safe step. But maybe... Bruno moved first. He backed up slightly, then ran, leaped. His body cleared the gap cleanly, landing hard on the other side but staying upright. Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped back, focused, then ran, jumped. His boots hit the edge hard, sliding for a split second, but he caught himself, scrambling forward. Marcus followed right behind. They didn't stop. The rope was just ahead now, visible through the dust. The exit. Ethan grabbed it first. "Go!" Marcus shouted. "I've got Bruno!" But Bruno was already moving. He circled once, then leaped upward, claws catching the dirt wall as Ethan guided him up. The dog climbed with effort, muscles straining, slipping once before regaining his hold. Ethan pushed him higher. "Come on! Come on!" Bruno made it over the edge. Ethan followed. His arms burned as he pulled himself up, dirt crumbling beneath his grip. He rolled onto the ground just as another deep rumble shook the earth below. Marcus climbed out seconds later, collapsing beside him. For a moment, silence. Just breathing. Heavy, uneven. Ethan turned his head. "Bruno!" The dog was there, standing. But something was wrong. He wasn't steady. One of his front legs trembled. Ethan pushed himself up immediately. "What happened?" he said, moving closer. Bruno tried to step forward, then faltered, collapsed slightly. Ethan caught him. Hey, easy." His hands moved quickly, checking the dog. Then he saw it, on a deep gash along Bruno's side. Not massive, but enough. Blood had soaked into his fur, dark and thick. Ethan's chest tightened. When? Marcus shook his head. Must have been when that debris hit. Ethan's hands trembled as he pressed his shirt against the wound. Stay with me, he said softly. Stay with me, buddy. Bruno looked up at him, eyes steady, calm, even now. The dog's tail moved once, weak. But there. Ethan swallowed hard. His vision blurred for a second. Not from dust, from memory. A different time. A different place holding someone else. Blood. Noise. Loss. No, he muttered. Not this time. He pressed harder against the wound. You're not leaving me. Marcus knelt beside him. We need to get him inside. Clean it. Stop the bleeding. Ethan nodded, but he didn't move right away. And he just held Bruno there for a second longer, feeling the weight of him, the warmth. Alive. Still alive. Then, a final distant collapse echoed from the hole. Both men looked up. The ground around the opening shifted slightly. More dirt falling in, sealing parts of the entrance. Marcus stood slowly. They're covering it, he said. Ethan followed his gaze. The hole was changing, closing in places, like the earth itself was trying to hide it again. But Ethan knew better. This wasn't natural. This was controlled, deliberate. He looked back down at Bruno, at the blood, at the dog who had just saved him again. And something inside Ethan hardened. They tried to bury it, he said quietly. Marcus glanced at him. Ethan's voice dropped. But it's not staying buried. He lifted Bruno carefully into his arms. The dog didn't resist, didn't struggle, just rested against him, trusting, completely. Ethan turned toward the house, each step steady, certain. Behind him, the land shifted again, but this time, Ethan wasn't afraid. He was done running. The house smelled like antiseptic and dust. Ethan laid Bruno gently across the old wooden table, the same one he used for fixing tools and patching fence wire. Now it held something far more fragile. Stay with me, Ethan said quietly, his hands already moving. Marcus stood nearby, opening a small medical kit from his bag. He's bleeding, but it's not as deep as it looks, he said. You caught it early. Ethan didn't respond. He was focused, cleaning the wound, pressing gauze, holding pressure steady. Bruno didn't make a sound, not a whimper, not a cry, and just those steady eyes watching Ethan, calm even in pain. That dog's tougher than both of us, Marcus muttered. Ethan swallowed hard. Yeah, he said. He always has been. Minutes passed, slow, careful. The bleeding began to slow. Marcus wrapped the bandage tight but controlled, securing it in place. That'll hold for now, he said. He needs rest. Ethan nodded, but his hand didn't leave Bruno. Not yet. The dog shifted slightly, testing his strength, then settled again. Alive. Still here. Ethan finally stepped back. For the first time since they came out of the tunnel, he allowed himself to breathe. But it didn't last. Because the images came back. The machines, the people, the system beneath his land. Marcus leaned against the counter, watching him. You saw what I saw, he said. Ethan nodded slowly. Oh, they're not just digging, he said. They're extracting something, moving it. Marcus crossed his arms. Oil, maybe, or gas. Could be anything with that kind of setup. Ethan shook his head. Not like that, he said. Not hidden. Not like a war zone. Marcus didn't argue. He just studied Ethan for a moment. "You're thinking about going back," he said. It wasn't a question. Ethan looked at Bruno, at the bandage, at the blood that had soaked into his shirt. "He almost died down there," Marcus added. Ethan's jaw tightened. "He saved me." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, he did." Silence filled the room again. Then Ethan spoke. "They're still running," he said. "Even after that collapse." Marcus sighed. "That means they're confident," he said. "Or desperate." Ethan turned toward the window. The field stretched out beyond the glass. Quiet. Still. Like nothing had happened. But he knew better now. "They're not stopping," Ethan said. Marcus followed his gaze. "No," he agreed. "They won't." Ethan's voice dropped. "Then we make them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked over to the table, picking up the documents they had taken from the records office. He flipped through them again, scanning names, dates, signatures. Then he stopped. "Midland Bore Logistics," he said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah." Ethan tapped the page. "They've got permits," he said. "Old ones, military contracts, but nothing recent." Marcus leaned in. "That's because whatever they're doing now isn't legal." Ethan looked up. "Exactly." Marcus studied him. "You're thinking exposure." Ethan nodded. Proof," he said. "We get proof, we take it public." Marcus exhaled slowly. "That's a big move." Ethan's eyes hardened. "So is digging under people's homes without them knowing." Marcus didn't argue. He just nodded once. "All right," he said. "Then we do it right." Ethan looked at him. "How?" Marcus pushed off the counter. "We need someone who understands what we're dealing with," he said. "Not just legally, technically." Ethan frowned. "Who?" Marcus thought for a second. Then, Dr. Emily Ross. Ethan didn't recognize the name. "She's an environmental scientist," Marcus explained. "Used to consult on underground systems, energy projects, stuff like this." Ethan crossed his arms. "And she'll help us?" Marcus shrugged. "If what's down there is what I think it is, she'll want to." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then call her." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'll try." While he stepped outside, Ethan turned back to Bruno. The dog had shifted slightly, resting his head on the edge of the table now. His breathing was steady, slower. Ethan reached out, running a hand gently along his neck. "You don't have to keep saving me," he said quietly. Bruno's eyes opened. Just enough. He looked at Ethan, then closed them again. Ethan let out a breath that felt heavier than anything he had carried before. "You already did enough." Outside, the wind picked up again. The sky had darkened slightly. Storm coming. Marcus came back in a few minutes later. "She'll meet us, I saw. Tomorrow morning." Ethan nodded. "Good." Marcus glanced at Bruno. "He going to be all right?" Ethan looked down at the dog, at the rise and fall of his chest, at the quiet strength still there. "Yeah," he said softly. "He is." Then his expression changed. Subtle, but real. Because something else had settled in now. Not fear, not confusion. Purpose. Ethan looked back toward the field, toward the place where everything had started. "They think they can stay hidden," he said. Marcus followed his gaze. Ethan's voice lowered. "They're wrong." The wind outside howled louder. The land waited. and beneath it, so did the truth. Morning came heavy and gray. Low clouds pressed against the mountains, and a cold wind swept across the ranch, bending the tall grass in slow, uneasy waves. Nothing about the land felt peaceful anymore. Ethan stood on the porch, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the field. The hole looked smaller now, not because it had changed, but because he understood it. And it wasn't just damage, it was an entrance. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. Marcus stepped out first. "She's here." Ethan turned. A second later, a dark SUV pulled up beside the barn, not black like the one from town, but worn, practical. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out, mid-30s, focused, sharp. Dr. Emily Ross didn't waste time looking around. Her eyes went straight to the field. "That's where it opened?" she asked. Ethan nodded. She walked toward it immediately, Marcus and Ethan following behind. Bruno came out slowly from the house. He was limping, but he came anyway. Ethan noticed. "You should stay," he said. Bruno ignored him, fell into step. Ethan didn't argue. They reached the edge. Emily crouched, studying the collapse with careful precision. She didn't rush, didn't assume, what she observed. Then she pulled out a small device, scanning the air, the ground, the structure. Her expression changed. Subtle, but enough. "This isn't just drilling," she said. Marcus crossed his arms. "That's what we figured." Emily shook her head. "No," she said. "This is deeper, more complex." She stood. "Show me." Ethan looked at the rope, then at Bruno. The dog was already staring at the hole. "Ready." Ethan exhaled. "We go down." The descent felt different this time. Not just dangerous, purposeful. Ethan moved first, slower now, more controlled. Emily followed, then Marcus. Bruno waited until Ethan reached the bottom, then jumped, despite the bandage, despite the pain. Ethan caught him as he landed. "Easy," he muttered. Bruno leaned into him for half a second, then moved forward, leading again. But Emily looked around as soon as she landed. Her eyes scanned everything, the walls, the structure, the faint patterns beneath the surface. She didn't speak right away, but Ethan could see it. Recognition. Concern. "Keep moving," Marcus said quietly. They followed the same path as before. Careful, deliberate. The hum returned, stronger now. Emily paused once, placing her hand against the wall, then quickly pulled it back. "Heat transfer," she said. "Constant flow." Ethan looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It means whatever they're extracting, it's active, continuous." Bruno stopped. Ethan immediately froze. "What is it?" Marcus whispered. The dog's ears twitched. Then he moved slightly to the side again, avoiding something. Ethan followed, and saw it. Another weakened section of ground, barely visible, but they stepped around it. Emily glanced at Bruno. "That dog just saved us again," she said. Ethan didn't reply. He didn't need to. They continued. Then, the light appeared again. The chamber. This time they didn't hesitate. They moved closer, closer, until the full system came into view. Emily's breath caught. "Oh my God!" The machines were louder now, clearer. Pumps, pipes, control units, everything connected, everything working, and people, at least 3. Moving between stations, checking readings, adjusting controls. Ethan felt it again. That same surge. Anger. "They're still running," he said. Emily stepped forward slightly, eyes scanning everything. "This isn't just illegal," she whispered. "This is massive." Marcus leaned in, How massive? Emily pointed. See those lines? She said. That's distribution. This isn't just one site. Ethan followed her hand. The pipes branched out. Multiple directions. Endless. This runs under multiple properties, she continued. Possibly counties. Ethan's jaw clenched. They're stealing from all of us. Emily nodded slowly. And no one knows. Bruno moved again. Closer to Ethan this time. Pressed against his leg. Not fear. Warning. Ethan turned slightly. What is it? Then, a sound. Behind them. Footsteps. Not theirs. Marcus reacted first. Down, he whispered. They dropped low, moving behind a large support structure. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Ethan's heart pounded. Bruno didn't move, didn't bark. Just watched. A man passed by. Close. Too close. Carrying a tablet. Focused on something ahead. He stopped. Not for a second. Ethan thought they were seen. The man turned slightly, looked around, then kept walking. Ethan exhaled slowly, but the tension didn't leave. Emily leaned in close. We need proof, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Then we get it. He pulled out his phone, started recording. Slow, steady, every detail. The machines, the pipes, the people. Marcus moved to another angle, capturing more. Emily pointed at specific components, whispering what they were. Names, functions, scale, evidence. Real, undeniable. Bruno shifted again. Then suddenly, he growled, low, sharp. Ethan froze. What? A voice echoed from the far side of the chamber. Did you hear that? Another voice answered. Yeah, check it. Marcus's eyes widened. They heard him. Ethan grabbed Bruno's collar gently. Quiet, he whispered. But it was too late. Footsteps. Coming closer. Faster. Emily whispered. We have enough. Marcus nodded. Time to go. Ethan took one last look at the system, at the truth hidden beneath his land. Then he turned. They moved back. Quick, silent, but not fast enough. A voice behind them shouted, Hey! They ran. The tunnel stretched ahead, long, endless, the hum now deafening. Behind them, footsteps, closing in. Bruno ran beside Ethan, limping but fast, driven, determined. They reached the rope. Marcus climbed first. Fast. Emily followed. Ethan lifted Bruno again, pushing him upward. Go! The dog climbed, slipping once, then catching himself. Ethan followed last, pulling himself up with everything he had left. He rolled onto the ground, breathing hard. Marcus grabbed his arm. They saw us. Ethan nodded. He already knew, because in the distance, the hum beneath the ground shifted again. Not steady anymore, not hidden, active, aware. They weren't just witnesses anymore. They were targets. The wind picked up hard across the ranch, carrying dust and dry grass into the air, as if the land itself was trying to warn them. Ethan pushed himself to his feet, chest heaving. Inside, Marcus said sharply. Now! They didn't wait. Emily grabbed her bag, already moving. Ethan lifted Bruno again, more carefully this time, holding him close as he carried him toward the house. Behind them, a low mechanical shift echoed from the hole. Different from before. Not hidden, not subtle, aware. Ethan felt it in his spine. They're coming up, he said. Marcus didn't argue. They reached the house and moved inside quickly, shutting the door behind them. Marcus locked it out of instinct. though all of them knew it wouldn't stop anything serious. Emily spread her equipment across the table immediately. "Give me your phone," she said. Ethan handed it over without hesitation. Marcus did the same. Emily moved fast, connecting cables, transferring files, duplicating everything onto a secure drive. "We don't keep this in one place," she said. "If they come for it, we lose everything." Ethan nodded. Bruno shifted slightly in his arms. Ethan lowered him gently onto the couch. "Stay," he said softly. The dog's eyes followed him, still alert, still watching. Marcus moved to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see outside. "Truck," he said. Ethan turned. "What?" Marcus's voice dropped. Black SUV." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Same one?" Marcus didn't look away. "Looks like it." The engine outside cut. Silence followed. Heavy. Intentional. Emily didn't stop working. "How long?" she asked. Marcus glanced again. "Seconds." Ethan stepped closer to the door. Every instinct in his body screamed at him. Not fear, preparation, the kind that came before impact. Bruno let out a low growl from the couch. Then, a knock. 3 slow, controlled hits against the door. No one moved. The knock came again. "Mr. Cole," a voice called out. Calm, professional. "We'd like to speak with you." Ethan didn't answer. Marcus shook his head slightly. "Don't." The voice came again. "We're aware you've accessed restricted property. This can be handled quietly." Emily whispered, They want the evidence." Ethan's jaw tightened. "No," he said quietly. "They want silence." The man outside waited. Then, "We can help you," he added. "Compensation, protection." Ethan almost laughed. Instead, he stepped closer to the door. "You've been under my land for decades," he said, voice steady. "You don't get to offer me anything." Silence. Then, a shift. Footsteps on the porch. Marcus tensed. "They're moving." Ethan stepped back. "Back door," Marcus said. Emily grabbed the drive. "Ready?" Ethan moved to Bruno. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. Bruno pushed himself up, shaky, but standing. That was enough. Ethan nodded. "Let's go." They moved fast, out the back, across the yard, toward the trucks, behind them. The front door opened, hard, voices shouting. "Move!" Marcus yelled. They reached the vehicles. Marcus jumped into his truck. Emily followed. Ethan opened his door, then paused. Bruno was behind him. Not fast enough. Ethan turned. "Come on!" The dog limped forward, then stumbled. Ethan didn't think. He ran back, scooping Bruno up again just as voices closed in from behind the house. "Stop!" Ethan didn't. He carried Bruno back to the truck, throwing the door open and placing him inside. Marcus's engine roared to life. "Go!" They pulled out hard, tires spinning against dirt, gravel spraying behind them as they tore down the road. In the rearview mirror, the black SUV followed. Fast. Too fast. "They're not letting this go," Emily said. Ethan gripped the wheel tighter. "Neither are we." The road curved sharply ahead. Narrow. Unforgiving. Marcus took the lead, pushing speed, and kicking up dust to block the view behind them. The SUV stayed close, persistent, relentless. Bruno shifted in the seat, lifting his head. Ethan glanced at him. "Stay down," he said. The dog didn't listen. His eyes were fixed on the mirror, watching. Then, a sudden move. The SUV swerved, trying to pass. Marcus reacted instantly, cutting them off. "Not today," he muttered. The vehicles pushed forward, engines roaring through the valley. The tension snapped tight. Then, the road split. Marcus veered left. Ethan followed. The SUV hesitated, then chose Marcus. Ethan slowed, watching. Marcus's truck disappeared around the bend, the SUV chasing close behind. Silence returned, just the sound of Ethan's engine and Bruno's breathing. Emily exhaled slowly. He led them away. Ethan nodded. "He'll circle back." They didn't stop until they reached the highway. Only then did Ethan pull over. Everything went quiet. No pursuit. No sound. Just wind. Emily held up the drive. "We've got it," she said. Ethan looked at it, then back toward the mountains, toward his land. "They won't stop," he said. Emily shook her head. "No," she said. "But now they can't hide." Marcus's truck appeared 10 minutes later, rolling up beside them. He stepped out. "All good?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "For now." Marcus looked at the drive. "That enough?" Emily met his gaze. "It's everything." Ethan took a slow breath, then spoke. "Then we don't wait." Marcus nodded. Emily agreed. They all knew what came next. No more hiding. No more silence. Ethan looked down at Bruno. The dog's eyes met his. Tired. Wounded. Well, but still there. Still fighting. Ethan placed a hand on his head. "Let's finish this," he said quietly. Because the truth was no longer buried. It was moving. And now, so were they. The story broke before sunset. It didn't explode all at once. It spread. Quiet at first. A single report. Then another. By nightfall, every major outlet had picked it up. Hidden extraction systems, unauthorized underground operations, private land violations across multiple counties. Footage from beneath Ethan's land played on screens across the country. Machines humming in the dark. Pipelines stretching endlessly underground. Workers caught on camera where no one should have been. The truth wasn't buried anymore. It was everywhere. Ethan stood in the living room, the TV casting a cold glow across the walls. But news anchors spoke in steady voices, but the weight behind their words was clear. Federal investigation has now been launched. Midland bore logistics under scrutiny. Environmental and legal implications still unfolding. Marcus leaned against the doorway. "They're done," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "No," she replied. "They're exposed. That's different." Ethan didn't say anything. He was watching something else. On the screen. His land. Aerial footage. The field. The collapse. The place where everything had started. For a moment, it didn't feel like his anymore. Then, a soft sound behind him. Ethan turned. Bruno. The dog stood in the hallway, still healing, still slower than before, but standing. Ethan's expression shifted. He walked over slowly, kneeling down in front of him. "Oh, you shouldn't be up," he said gently. Bruno stepped forward anyway, rested his head against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan closed his eyes for a second. Just a second. Then he wrapped his arms around him. Careful. Protective. "You stayed," Ethan whispered. Bruno's tail moved once. That was enough. Weeks passed, then months. The investigation grew, expanded. More land, more tunnels, more evidence. What had started beneath Ethan's ranch stretched far beyond it. State lines, old contracts, hidden operations that had gone unnoticed for decades. But not anymore. The system collapsed. quietly at first, then completely, and for the first time in a long time, the land breathed again. A year later, spring came back to Wyoming. The grass grew taller, greener, the air felt different, cleaner, and Ethan stood at the edge of the field, hands resting at his sides. The hole was gone, filled, reinforced. Nothing remained of what had once been there, at least not on the surface. But Ethan knew better. Some things didn't disappear. They changed. Behind him, the sound of paws on dirt, slow, steady. Bruno walked up beside him. The scar along his side had healed, but it remained visible, a quiet reminder of everything they had been through. Ethan glanced down at him. "You still keep watch," he said. Bruno looked out across the field, alert, calm, present. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." The wind moved through the grass again, softer this time. Not a warning, just movement, just life. Ethan took a breath, deep, full. For the first time in years, it didn't feel heavy. The memories were still there. Thus, the past hadn't disappeared. But it didn't control him anymore, not like before. He looked down at Bruno again. A small smile touched his face. "You didn't just save me down there," he said quietly. Bruno's ears twitched. Ethan's voice lowered. "You brought me back." The dog didn't need to understand the words. He stayed anyway. That was enough. Ethan turned his gaze back to the land, the same land that had been taken, hidden, used, and finally returned. Not by force, not by luck, but by truth and loyalty, and something stronger than either. Ethan exhaled slowly. "The land was stolen," he said. He paused, then looked down at Bruno. "But you gave it back." The wind carried the words across the field, and for once, nothing answered back. Because there was nothing left hiding, only open ground, and the quiet, steady presence of a man and his dog, standing where they belonged. If this story moved you, if you felt even a little of what Ethan felt, I want you to do something simple. Just comment 1 below. And if you believe a dog's loyalty can save a life, comment 0. I read every single comment and I want to know you were here watching this moment with us. And if you're still here right now, don't forget to hit subscribe, because the next story might be even more powerful. And who knows, it might be the one that stays with you forever.